I often hear the good handler saying that it's very important to have your dog working correctly at hand, because if he's working correctly at hand, well, then he can work correctly at the bottom of the field, or he can work correctly, at distance, because he understands it. But getting them working well at hand isn't often very exciting and all. You want to work at bigger distances. But really, those good handlers, they aren't wrong when they say to get him working well at hand. And what they mean is get him flanking nice and clean, get him stopping well, and get him walking forward. So, for example, if you've got a nice keen dog, they're going to want to cut in on their flanks. They might start off maybe 10 yards off the sheep, and you give them an away, off balance flank. And you find that when they get to about 3 o'clock, instead of being 10 yards, maybe they're 7 yards. And maybe when they get to, 12 o'clock, they're in at like 5 yards. So, that's something that you need to clean up in training if you want to have your flanks clean down the field. And so, in order to clean up your flanks, then you need to have a clean stop, because if you don't have a clean stop, the dog is going to creep in to the sheep on you. And so then you don't get to reset him properly and everything else. So, when he starts to cut in, you need to be able to stop him clean. So, in that way, you're also working on his stop, and it's all close at hand. So, you're in a position to go and enforce it. And so what I mean by going and force it, I mean, you know your dog is cutting in. You've seen it, on other flanks, so you're ready for it. So when you send him and you start to see him cutting in, immediately you stop him, and you also make your way as quickly as you can to the dog to block him, to enforce your stop so that he can't come forward. And so we do this consistently over time. The dog stop cleans up, but that's why we're working at hand, so that it doesn't take us very long to get over and block him, because it's not a big distance. So now when we've stopped him here, we're sort of in front of him, blocking him from the sheep, and we're in a position to, recast him. And so to turn him back out off that flank that he was coming in on. And in order to do this, that's why we need his head to turn. I talk in some other videos there about teaching him to turn their head, but we need him to turn his head. And we also need to be ready to give the command, which is the away command, when the dog's head is pointed the right way. It's all about the timing here. So if we give it to him too soon, you can't, the dog is going to follow his head. So we need to get that head looking back out to get him back out onto that 10-yard line, if it's a 10-yard line that we set him off on initially. So it's very easy to spend 20 minutes on a lesson like this in like even a quarter acre of a paddock. And the sheep actually don't have to do very much at all. It's better if they kind of stand around, stand still. The dog is doing all the work, and then the handler is doing the work, because the handler has to move when the dog doesn't stop, when he's told to stop, or when he's cutting in. All the handler needs to start to wake up and see that. But if you're watching it for a while, you'll start to see, if you look for that imaginary arc, if you start him at 5 yards or 7 meters or 10 yards or whatever you set him at, keep that little radius in your mind as you're watching him, visualize it, and you'll see him starting to fall in or starting to cut in. And that's the time to stop him and correct it, and go over to him and bend him back out. Or if it's a bitch, bend her back out, whatever. We won't get too worried about the sex. So, you just need to be aware of that, and you start to see it more and more, and then you react quicker, and your timing will get better, and then your dog will get cleaner and cleaner. Now, there's one other thing not to be aware of when we're doing this. So, as our stop is getting cleaner and our flanks are getting very good, we need to remember to also let the dog come forward every now and again. We don't want the dog to forget how to come forward and walk onto sheep. And so when we let him walk forward like that, we let him move the sheep. So whether it's in a fetch to us or a drive away from us or whatever, just that the dog gets to know to come in, that he'll need to come straight in when he's asked, and just walk on and lift the sheep and just push them a little bit. And then we can go back to clean flanking again. And then every now and again, let the dog walk forward and take them in a direction. So that's typically what a training session will look like with me. And even Bruce. Bruce is 7 or 7.5. And when I start to clean him up for open trials, this is what I'll need to go back to. It's actually a video of Bruce uh, working in a little half-acre pen that I have there, where I was cleaning him up like that, cleaning up his flanks. It's there on Patreon. If you remember, you can see it. But typically, this is what a lesson looks like when I go out with any of my dogs, unless they're flanking really clean and their stops are really clean, and then maybe I'm working on something else. But even if I only had 10 minutes to school a dog, this is what I'd be doing.